Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Parashat Pointers for Parashat Shofetim. This week's message is dedicated by Ike Cohen in memory of Avraham ben Frida HaKohen, and also by Yvonne and Marc Franco in honor of me. Thank you so much. Now, Parashat Shofetim has a pasuk where it talks about when a person goes to war. The Jewish people went to war for two different purposes. Sometimes it was a melechet mitzvah, where they had to go, which was Hashem told them they have to go. Another type of war was called milchemet reshut. It was not something they had to do, but they did it because it was smart. It was for to create peace and security in the borders of Israel proper. And when they went to those wars, the Kohen would get up and he would address the troops. And the pasuk says, he would say, if there's anybody who is afraid or disheartened or worried, let him go home. Now, he's going home. He's leaving the battle. The rabbis in the Gemara, Rabbi Yossi Haglili, says there's three people that went home from the battlefield. Either you just got married and you did not live yet with your wife, or you built a house and you did not yet live in that house, and finally, you planted a vineyard but you did not take the first crop and enjoy its produce. Those are the three categories of people. However, Rabbi Yossi Haglili says, really, that's not why these people are going back. It's a smokescreen. The truth of the matter is, these people were afraid because they felt that they had sin. They had sin, they did things wrong, and they felt that they did not have the merit for Hashem to protect them in the battle. So instead of just going home and everybody seeing, that guy's going home because he's a sinner, he must have done some really bad things, the Torah created these other reasons to cover up and to allow this person to go home from the battlefield keeping his dignity intact. He won't have to feel embarrassed that everybody says, yeah, that's the guy that's sinning and doing things wrong. If the Torah goes out of its way to protect the dignity of a person, this is something that we have to really look very carefully at. There's a story I once heard about Rav Chacham Ben Zion Abba Shaul, who was a great Gaon, lived in Eretz Yisrael. And one time when he was learning in the Bet Midrash, he heard there was a big ruckus going on and they were screaming, Ganav, Ganav, thief, thief. Somebody took the rabbi's jacket and ran. And they was running down the street and they were screaming after him, a thief, thief, thief. Chacham Ben Zion stopped everybody and said, excuse me, I understand that he stole, but does that give you a right to embarrass him? Get him, try to get the thing back, but what do you got to scream thief, thief to the entire world? Unbelievable level of the Gaon. Zecher Satik de Bracha. But what we learn from here is that there are two separate things happening. Sometimes a person does something wrong. It happens. But that's not a right to embarrass that human being. Many times with our children, we find them behaving in a way that's incorrect. Now, we have to teach them the correct behavior, but we don't have a right to embarrass them. For example, I once witnessed a boy sitting next to his father, and the boy took out his phone in the middle of tefillah. It's not a right thing to do. It's wrong. But what the father did next, screaming and embarrassing him till the boy was he was red in the face, he just ran out of shul. That's not the way to handle it. The correct way would have been to speak to his son, maybe quietly, say, please put it away, or speak to him after, build him up, explain to him the importance. The Gemara in Baba Metzia tells us that it's better for a person to allow himself to be tossed into a fiery furnace than to willingly embarrass another person. This is found in Baba Metzia, Nuntet Amud Aleph. The question is why? Well, what's the source before we even get to the question of why? The source is Tamar. Tamar was willing to be burned rather than Shem Yehuda. We know that She bore the son of Yehudah, and she had in her possession his belongings, that she could prove that he was the father, even though that was her father-in-law. And it would have been very embarrassing to him. However, she did not do that. She did not openly embarrass him. She gave him an opportunity to speak up for himself. And she would have been burned at the stake, because that would have been the punishment for her having relations while being married still, or at least in Yibum, to one of Yehudah's children. The Gemara then goes on to say that if someone shames another one in public and he causes the blood to drain from his face, he's comparable to a murderer. That's why it's so dangerous to embarrass another person, because that's considered murder. We're now in the month of Elul. We're focusing on improving ourselves, becoming better Jews. The most potent weapon that the Yetzer Hara has is to tell a person, you think you can change? Look at all the sins you've done. You can't be a tzaddik. The person then gives up and doesn't even attempt to go closer to Hashem. When we embarrass and shame our children, we simply reinforce that feeling of worthlessness, and the motivation to become better and to grow is extinguished. We have to guide, teach, and chastise our children. But it must always, and that's in caps lock, always be done with love and respect. There has to be a strategy to build up the child, not tear him down. Let us ensure that our children keep their sense of self-respect as we do all that we can do to guide them in the proper path of Torah and mitzvot. Amen. Shabbat shalom.